transfer as well. it appears that the stream actually does work. Alright, so if anybody's actually watching this, if you're curious what this code does, it's... Let me change the window. There we go. For whatever reason, there's an odd grayish tint on the stream. I wonder what, or like rust colored tint. I wonder if it's like a compression artifact or what's the deal with that. I have no idea. Anyways, this is heylisten.io, and somebody's actually using it today. But I'll create a test room, and what you can do with this is you can go to the playlist, throw a song in there, and it's going to start playing music, and I can add another song. It's going to show up in the playlist right here. I can add another one. The cool thing about this is if I were to hop on from another browser, or another person decides to join, they just start listening to whatever is on there playing right now. It's synced as best as you can sync streams between two people, and the cool thing about this, as opposite to just sharing a playlist on YouTube, is you can actually throw in stuff from Vimeo and SoundCloud in here as well. So if you want to have this playlist that's a mix of SoundCloud and YouTube, you can do this with this website and listen to it together with people. Anybody can add stuff to the playlist. There's a chat. It's nothing like super super complicated. I'm just gonna shut it down now. I wonder what the window capture will do. Oh, it starts capturing another window. We should probably change it back to Atom. There we go. Yeah, so there isn't actually a whole lot of code that is required to do this. I use node.js and with express and socket.io mainly to do this. As you can see, there's express, URL, HTTP, and HTTPS. Of course, these are just standard libraries. So it's FS, and then another thing is socket.io. Mongo is here, which is not actually being used. I'm going to throw that away later. These certs aren't being used right now. The website is using HTTPS, but the way I deal with certifications and keys is I just use Nginx and then use reverse proxy to this server, which I have the benefit of logging security stuff, load distribution of Nginx, and I don't have to maintain that code myself. Assert, I can't remember what I used Assert for. I guess I'll have to look it up. And config file has the API keys in it. And MAML is, if I remember it correctly, it's a mess. But it stands for Multi-APA Multimedia Library, which is that file that contains all the mess of a code that deals with YouTube, Vimeo, and SoundCloud. So it, so this looks so clean. It's not a big file. This is like bulk of the code, and yeah, it's 628 lines of code, and it's not, there's some empty lines. It could be cleared up, so it would probably be like 600 lines. Mine's, without the comment, probably under 600 lines. So it's not anything complicated by any means. I wonder what the deal is with that Rust tint on the stream. Yeah, so back to this. So yeah, I haven't been working on it for I think close to a year. I haven't touched it at this point. So the idea with this live stream is to get myself familiar with my own code again, and yeah, start working on it again, because I noticed people are actually using the website for whatever reason. I guess I kind of created it for myself and some friends, and I guess other people kind of found it and are enjoying it, so why not add some features that people are or have been requesting over time. So yeah, just this stream is just a rubber duck kind of a deal. I think it's easier for me to figure out what things do if I keep talking about it rather than just start reading my code. It will probably get pretty embarrassing. There's some bodge solutions in there, but it does work, so there's that. So starting from the top, yeah, that these are all the dependencies. Welcome message is what is being displayed in on the top of the chat when you join, similar to the IRC topic message, I guess you would call it. Some global variables get also declared here. I'll probably have to reference the documentation for sockets since I don't remember a lot of this stuff, but it will probably become clear once we go along. Some functions that are used lower in the callbacks also get defined here to keep the code somewhat readable. I remember I moved a lot of functions around, just trying to find a good spot for them. Really, currently this whole thing, it fits in like 2 files. It should be more, and yeah, there's a lot of cleaning up to do here. But hopefully I left enough comments so I can figure it out. So okay, so this I remember, this is just a room list. So when you go to heylisten.io on the front page, there's a list of rooms being displayed with a number of people in them. It's just a simple Ajax call that checks or pulls this file. It's not really anything complicated. This is Express stuff. Yeah, so this shows you how complicated the file structure is. Anything that's not indexed is a room. This is it. This is the entire structure of Heylisten. Okay, so I replaced console log with terminal message. Terrible name for a function, but what it does is just adds date to the error, so I know when things happen, because the issue I was getting into is that I knew something through an error, but because I maybe didn't look at the logs for a few days, I had no idea when it happened and what the server was doing at the time. So terminal message, yeah, just adds time to your console log. That's as simple as it is. Authentication tokens, I don't think this is getting used right now. What it is supposed to be doing is in the future they're supposed to, whoever creates the room is the room admin, and I still don't want to have registration. Right now you can use it, just hop on, go ahead, have fun. There's no need to register with, you don't have to give me your Facebook login or whatever. Hop on and use it, but in order to make it a little bit harder to game the skip voting system, or to allow admins in rooms, this token system will be there, which will just use cookies to identify you as an admin of any given room. Finding sockets connected to a room, this is not important right now. This will all make sense when we go to the main kind of loop. Update playlist, pretty self-explanatory. URL parser. So this decides which, when you add something to the playlist, what the source is of it. This parses YouTube URLs. This probably should be in the MAML file, but it's a pretty big mess as it is. but eventually it will probably end up there. Send a list of clients. This probably just updates the list of people who are in the room that's on the side of the chat. It checks if a user has a nickname, just to make sure there is no zero length nicknames and odd stuff like that. This will make sense later. This is part of the voting system, because I don't know if I explained this before, but you can vote if you you can vote to skip a song if enough people don't like what's in the playlist. You can just skip to the next one. Averager function is to decide if when you join, this was, I think it was supposed to check where everybody is at. I don't think this is being used right now. I'm not sure, because right now I don't remember if Halison actually checks where you are in the song. I think just assumes that based on the total length of the song, where it should be. So it's not truly syncing anything, it's just counting time. Current date. This is used for quote-unquote syncing, which I already said isn't really syncing. Next song, yeah, it has to clear the playlist. That's why it's, you know, a whole function. Chat commands. There's a few chat commands that you can use. They're all explained if you type in /help. It's all there. The cool things that you can do in the chat that you actually can't do with the playlist add field. You can add the entire YouTube playlist. I think there's a limit on it. I think it's 20, because when it parses URLs, you could actually technically use too much resources, and server just kind of goes crazy. It's partially due to the inefficiency of my code. So if I fix it, maybe eventually you'll be able to add longer playlists. But which you can add a longer playlist. You will just stop checking or stop adding songs at about 20. It might be 10. I can't remember. Let's see. Yeah, it's 20. And yeah, this is for adding multiple songs from a channel. This is also a chat command. I think it's just add uploads. Yeah, it just gets multiple songs from a channel, so you can build playlists faster, which is kind of convenient. You can just in 2 seconds build yourself a quick playlist, and I used it when I was writing this a lot. just quickly building a playlist of songs that I want to listen to while writing the code. Next on the docket is save room list. Oh yeah, so this it goes to the file before. This is so there's a current list of rooms that the index can display. Add new song. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't want to get into too much detail how it works because it is kind of weird. I think the start at is not being used right now, but in the future the idea was, so if like a song has like I know, the obvious example is probably Thriller, has kind of an intro that's lengthy before the song actually starts. If you don't want to watch that whole thing and you just want to listen to the song, you could just start it at whatever second, however many seconds, where the song actually starts. Vote to skip. That's pretty self-explanatory. They'll probably get into details of it. Always something to do later, but yeah, it checks if a user already voted, and it's pretty simple. But because of sockets, it kind of looks weird. This maintains the list of users, and finally, this is the main loop kind of a deal of hey, listen, this is what happens when you actually make the connection to a room. So like I said before, I use socket.io, and so it uses WebSockets. Probably a bit of an overkill for what the website is actually doing, but it does work. It made it pretty easy to develop the whole thing and pretty fast, and the fact that I am using WebSockets makes it easy to expand in the future. So it's, in a way, it's kind of a shame that there isn't more features implemented. Oh, let's see. I can already see that there's some bot. If room is the fix for I can't remember exactly what this was, but it was an error that the server kept throwing when the rooms were being created. So this solved it. I can't remember exactly what the issue was, but it doesn't happen anymore, so I'm not going to touch it. This just make sure the room is lowercase and the right name, and codes it, blah blah blah. Nothing too fancy happening there. And finally, it lets you join the room here. make sure the room has a list of users. This is just to make sure you don't get no values when you request the user list when somebody else joins. Check if the user has a nickname. Check how many people finished playing current song. This is one of the fake syncing thing. It works pretty well. But what it does is, if enough people in the room have finished listening to the song, then it will skip to the next one. Kind of the same would work with voting. So it doesn't wait for everybody, and that's because if you pause it and leave it, so it doesn't just hold the entire room waiting for you to finish. This make sure playlist exists even if it's zero length, just so it's not, it's an array, so it doesn't return a null value, because that would just cause some errors. What else is here? Oh, okay. So if someone joins and the playlist already exists, or there's an item 0 in the playlist, it updates the time of that song and sends it to that person who just connected. So if you connect to a room that has a song already playing, what's going to happen is you're going to get the playlist, and the song that's currently playing is going to start roughly at the same time that's playing for everybody else. And yeah, time when this song started, which it's just using Unix time for all of it. And this is temporary something. Can't remember why this is here. I wonder if it's actually being used. I'll have to look for it later. This is just some logging stuff. And then once you joined, it updates the list of rooms, and that's so the front page can display how many people are in those rooms. So this is what happens when somebody disconnects. The socket IO makes sure you left the room. There's a terminal message. Now I wonder, one thing I was going to add here, and I don't know if I can remember if I ever did, is, there we go, if there's less than one client connected, it destroys the room. That should be on a timeout. So if you just refresh the page, it doesn't destroy the room, because if it destroys the room, it also destroys your playlist. So that should probably be on like a, I don't know, probably 5 minute timeout. So when it happens, you don't have to rebuild your playlist again. So that's something to take note of. Chat messages, pretty self-explanatory. It just sends a message. Add the song, pretty self-explanatory. Song finished playing. So this just updates the playlist, moves to the next one, blah blah blah. It rolls through the whole cycle. This just sends the updated client list. This sends the, or rather, receives the vote to skip, launches the function. This receives the nickname that user typed in, and this actually receives the time from users in a room, which I, again, don't remember if this is actually being used. I don't think it is. But I guess I started writing the code for it. And there we go, HTTP listen. It's HTTP because, it doesn't really need to be HTTPS for a reverse proxy. Of course, I guess it should be, but really this is all happening internally. Sorry. Maybe I'll eventually change it to HTTPS, but I don't know why I would bother managing extra cert for something that's happening behind the firewall. So that's it. That's really all there is to the main file. As you can see, there's some bodges, some things that need to be cleaned up. It's not great, but it works. The one other thing that's here is mammal, and that is the mess that talks to YouTube, Vimeo, and SoundCloud. It's only 200 lines of code, so how bad it could be, you would say, but it's bad. So YouTube, all of this is done just to get the title. This isn't too complicated. All of this is an HTTPS GET request, nothing too complicated. Same for SoundCloud, just gets the title. Another HTTP request, interestingly, not HTTPS. I would add NS for not secure next to HTTP. It's to remind me that I'm supposed to change it to HTTPS. I think the reason this works is because SoundCloud doesn't accept HTTPS requests. If I remember correctly, I had a bunch of issues with SoundCloud. I think I'd spent, like YouTube, their API is complicated, and over time they transition between few versions of the API, and it made things a little bit tricky, because if you, of course, whenever there's a big platform like this, changes APIs and kills the old API, Stack Exchange will not clear all the old questions. So whenever you look for something, your best bet is to just read the documentation over and over and dig in it until you find your answer. With SoundCloud, the problem is that it's not as popular platform, so you will not see Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow questions on it as much. And the biggest problem that I run into is SoundCloud doesn't update their documentation, but they do update their API, and you can see that the problem this makes is that their documentation on some stuff is just plain wrong, and your job now trying to create an application that uses SoundCloud's API is to effectively just, I don't know, reverse engineer their API until we figure out how it works. And Vimeo is actually pretty decent for their documentation, so I can't complain too much about it. As you can see, it's actually the shortest of all three functions too, which it should be for something as simple as getting a title. This just picks which platform it's going to get the title from. This is for that command for getting multiple songs. Dealing with YouTube playlists is kind of weird. It's because you, as far as I know, don't have a limit on how long a YouTube playlist can be, and they don't want you to parse, these massive playlists. So they come in pages. I think it's 20 songs per page. So you have to do multiple requests if you are going to get a playlist that has 100 songs in its entirety, which I understand, but it still makes it kind of weird. I guess what they want you to do is put you in a situation where you actually have to get the paid Google developer account thing where you can make more requests, which hey, listen, for as small as this, it still runs everything for free. This gets the playlists, another HTTPS request, nothing too complicated, and that's really all there is to it. But because it's requests, it's parsing JSON, it's finding all the information that you need, it kind of looks like a mess. And of course callbacks, which I thought about switching to promises, and because the whole thing is written using callbacks, and aside from this portion, this 200 line file, most of it is fairly readable, and I think I managed to avoid getting to a callback hell, and there is no really performance benefit to using promises. I've toyed around with the idea of using Bluebird and rewriting everything with promises, just kind of practice using promises more. But honestly, I think I'm just gonna switch stick with callbacks for this one. Maybe Hey Listen IO2 will be written with promises if I ever get around to that. But I don't think Hey Listen IO2 is ever happening. So yeah, this is it. This is the code base. This is what's going to happen now. So yeah, the next, what did I do? The next thing to do is to start adding little features here and there, and yeah, we'll see how it all goes. I'll probably start seriously working on it tomorrow. This is kind of just a session to get myself familiar with the code again, and tomorrow what I'm probably going to do is, there was a simple request for a feature that syncs you again without having to refresh the room, so I'll do that. So if you pause and then start playing again, it starts you where you are supposed to be, and probably the delay for killing the room is going to get added tomorrow as well. I don't know when these features will actually be on the website, because I like to test them for a little bit locally, and there is no automated testing, just because a lot of it is UI based. So I kind of almost prefer to do it by hand, and I don't know. There's probably going to be someone who's going to recommend me some UI testing library, which I've looked at a lot of them before, and I don't know, because of the application being small enough, I still don't mind testing it by hand. But I guess automatically just rolling the code out wouldn't be such a bad thing. So yeah, this is it. This is it for the stream. I know how boring this was, but so I doubt that anybody's going to watch this. But it was a good session for me. So it helped me, I guess, figure out what needs work, and I'll probably be doing more of those in the future, even if no one watches them, because I guess that doesn't matter. I just need the live stream going so I don't feel like I'm talking to myself for an hour. That's that.